Guys, it's the weekend. Oh, man, guys. Feeling good. Like you should. Guys, it's happy hour. It's Friday happy hour. That means it's the beginning of the weekend. It's time to party. You guys know the drill. Hop into the comments. Let me know where you are, what you're drinking. I'm going to be here dancing while we let a few more folks get in the room. Give you time to get something in your glass. Yeah, some of you might have also noticed. Got a sweet new cut that I did myself in my bathroom this morning. I'm feeling good. Y'all, my hair was the longest it's been in like probably 8 years, 10 years, who knows? And it all left, yes. And it's making me feel good. It's a lot cooler. Feeling blessed. Never stressed. Y'all, this is the jam for the weekend. I don't know if y'all gotten into this song yet, but this has been like on repeat during quarantine for me, especially at the end of the day. It's happy hour. It's time to have a little fun. Let's say hi to a few people. Woo! Asha, what is up? Tiffany, yes, I am hatless today. Gave myself that haircut this morning. There's some issues that you can't see and won't see, but the front looks all right, and that's the way we're going to keep it. We'll just keep the camera right here. Happy Friday, Alta. Cheers from Frisco, drinking some Pet Nat. I love it. Hopefully you did not make your bottle explode like I did yesterday. Remember, don't do that at home. That was dangerous. Catherine, what is up? Good to see you here. I'm drinking Mary Ruth in San Antonio. Brian, that's right. Let's get happy. Y'all, it's happy hour. Weekend. I'm so stoked. Ken, eating popcorn and drinking water. That's all right. You're here. That's all that matters. Sarah in San Antonio, drinking Timmins Mourvedre. Love it. Brian, I'm glad you like the haircut. You cannot see the back. You cannot see the back. Rick and Gail from Longmont, Colorado. You guys might be our first Colorado viewers. I love that. Drinking some red and some white. Bill, happy hour. Bill and Monica in Lake Jackson. Gosh, a lot of awesome folks in here. Cranberry vodka for Rayanne. I love it. Paul is here. Yes, high and tight. My dad's in the military. I broke a long string of males in my family joining the military, but mad respect. Obviously, my dad just retired from the National Guard. It's a big part of my upbringing and family. My grandfather on my dad's side is buried in Arlington National Cemetery. He's a Purple Heart in the Air Force from Vietnam. But yeah, I grew up getting the high and tight, man. I've been like a shaved head kind of guy. Even when I could grow hair up here on the front, I still would shave it off. So I like the short hair. I grew up in Texas. It's just more convenient. Roll out of bed. Let's make it happen. Guys, happy hour. We have some cool guests, so let's get to it. First up, I'm going to go to High Estate. We have got Luke, our tasting room manager, joining us. Wow, Luke, your beard is gone.
Gone.
You're looking clean.
It feels good. It feels really good. My wife and daughter are a little disappointed, but had to happen.
Yeah, I feel you. I haven't taken a razor to this face, like an actual razor. I've done the trimming, obviously, but the razor hasn't happened in a while. I'm a little afraid to do that, but you look youthful now. Like all that gray out of there, and like, what are you drinking today, sir?
Thank you very much. I'm drinking Farmhouse Mourvedre, William Chris Farmhouse Mourvedre, here on the estate, on this beautiful estate in High, Texas.
It is beautiful. Those Malbec vines are looking healthy.
Looking great.
It's the cycle of life. And hopefully the weather that's coming through tonight will not be too bad. I know there's some chances of hail, and that is always an issue. Guys, little wine nerd thing, if you don't know, that is one of the major issues that we deal with in the vineyard every year is potential for hail. So you guys say a little prayer for the farmers and for our estate grapes as well, that the weather that's coming through tonight will not be too damaging. So cheers to you, friend. Happy hour. Welcome to you. We'll come back and see you in a little bit, Luke. All right, guys, and I am so over the moon stoked for our Friday special guest. I've actually secretly been wanting Rania to come on the show for a very long time, and we finally coordinated. She has been so super busy with Bufalina. Guys, if you don't know this, I have a mad obsession and love with that restaurant and the people who work there and their pizza and their wine. And they launched Bufalina wine, and Rania's been working on that project. We're going to talk a lot about Rania and all the stuff that she's been doing in the wine industry here in Austin and more. But just to start, Rania, hi, friend. It's good to see you.
Hello. It's good to see you. So excited to be here.
Oh, gosh, we're so grateful to have you. Great way to kick off the weekend. I'm so stoked that we're going to have an acid trip together.
Yeah.
So tell me, where are you located right now and what are you drinking?
So I'm in my backyard, my beautiful backyard in South Austin, and I am sipping on this lovely Riesling, over here, by Peter Lauer. It's a Mosel Riesling. It's a slightly off dry style, but it works perfectly with the acid conversation we're going to be having today.
I love that so much, and I love Peter Lauer. Those Rieslings are my jam.
So good.
Gosh, so good. Okay, well, we're going to get into a lot more nerdy things together here in just a little bit. Thanks again for being here. Happy hour, friend.
Happy hour. Cheers.
Cheers. Guys, oh my gosh, this wine is tasting really nice too. Gosh, a little surprising. What is up, Tina and Leah? And Eric got his haircut today. Tempe, what's up? Alan drinking margaritas in Sugarland. Y'all are already getting some rain out there. It's 5 inches so far. Holy cow. I know that's headed our way. Well, I don't know if it's coming from there or wherever. It's coming tonight. Chris, what is up? Thank you for being present today. We couldn't party without you. I mean, we could, and we already have been a little bit, but we're glad you're here nonetheless. Savannah, thank you for the shout out. Guys, let's talk about what I'm drinking so we can get to the main attraction of Rania talking about acid in wine. So you guys know that we are the second largest producer of this beautiful grape variety in the US, Mourvedre. Guys, we make so many different bottlings of this grape. It does so well here in Texas. It can show up in a lot of different ways here in this state. This particular one is the Texas High Plains blend from 2017. That means it is not a single vineyard wine. So we do a lot of single vineyard Mourvedres, but we also do the Texas High Plains Mourvedre blend. Okay, this is the one that normally shows up in your retail spaces. So if you're a H-E-B shopper, if you're Twin Liquors, Central Market, Whole Foods, if you're seeing this out in the retail world, not at the winery, it's likely that you're having the High Plains blend. And honestly, right now, this 17 is just slapping. Like, I could maybe favor this over some of the younger single vineyard wines right now. That 3 years of age is not a ton for red wine, but, a lot of times current releases are like 1.5 years or 2 years old. So when you start to get it's like 1 more year past release, things really start to shine, especially the fruitier iterations of the styles that we do. So this is definitely in that world. I don't know if you can see the color. It's showing up kind of dark on the screen, but for me, in front of me, it's actually quite light in color. I can see through it still. It's definitely got all those cranberry, raspberry, red fruit notes that we love. Tiny bit of oak spice, a little bit of sweet baking spice. And then honestly, guys, this is starting to show what I love about Mourvedre, where you start to get some of that earthy savoriness. Yep. Same thing on the palate, guys. This is acidic, refreshing, tart red fruits, a little bit of sweet baking spice. And then that earthiness, that savoriness is also starting to come out a little bit. I always think forest floor. So you think about dried wet leaves. I said dried and wet next to each other. They're dead leaves on the ground, but they're kind of after a rainstorm, or they're kind of what I'm talking about? Mushroomy, forest flory kind of situation. You ever been on a hike where leaves have been dropped right after it rains, or recently after it rains? That smell. It doesn't have a ton of that. I think that will progress and develop as this wine ages more. It's pretty typical with Mourvedre, I think. It's still in the younger stages, so it's only just a small, slight note. Anthony wants to know what is just slapping. Guys, that means it's it is showing up, it is performing, it is it's banging. Like, I don't know how else to tell you, like, you want to be drinking this wine right now. So, you know, like, I don't know where that saying even came from. I feel like it's from music, like that's like a slapping beat or something. Like, you want to, like, I don't know. I'm totally making things up now. Let's stick to the wine, because that's what I can actually talk about. Guys, you want to have this with everything on the grill, smokiness grilled, beef fajitas, quail. We always love talking about grilling some quail, get a little quail action in Texas. We love that stuff. But honestly, like, this on a chill, which I've done like an hour chill on this, because it's a lighter version of our Mourvedres, and our lighter versions of Mourvedres always taste better with a slight chill. So I'd say this one, 45 minutes ish. I think I was in there a little bit longer, maybe more like an hour, in preparation for the show. So I'll drink this all day. It's 90 degrees outside. It's sunny, and it's got a chill, and it's a light red. Like, And what we're going to talk about today, it's got good acid. So let's actually let me stop talking. Let's bring our friend Rania back up. I'm going to give Rania a more proper introduction to let you guys know the amazing things that she has been doing and is continuing to do in the wine world. So let's see if I can pull this little prompt I'm going to put up in the chat. Guys, today we're going to be talking about the acid trip. I love the theme that Rania came up with. And it's basically acid in wine, guys, but we're going to go nerd deep on this. So without further ado, guys, let's welcome officially Rania to the show. She is running the program at Bufalina. So she is the wine director at Bufalina in Austin. That now includes Bufalina Wine, which almost has kind of its own identity now. So before, they had probably the best list in Austin, in my humble opinion. Like, I don't have any problem saying that. Like, it's the list that I always want to go drink. It's where, like, industry professionals, when they're not working, that's where they want to go drink, and there's a reason for it. It's a badass program. And now, because of all the things that have been happening, Rania's been working hard to get Bufalina Wine. So all that stuff that's on their list that's not necessarily normally available for retail, up on a website and available for retail. So you can order Bufalina wines off of their list on the website and then go pick it up. So you got to check that out. But while I love what she has been doing at Bufalina, I probably am even more excited and more proud. I don't know if that's the right word, but like stoked and over the moon for the attention that a project called the Wonder Women of Wine has been getting. And this is going to be in my own words. And Rania, I'd love for you to, like, jump in and correct me where it's wrong. But for me, the whole ethos behind Wonder Women of Wine is building a community of people who are advocating for gender equality in wine. And I think for me to bring awareness to the idea that, like, there aren't as many women who own wineries, who are making wine, who are in master sommelier and master of wine roles, who are leading programs, and to bring awareness around that and to bring people to the table to have conversations about how do we change the conversation about gender equality in wine. And she had an incredible kickoff, like, debut conference last year. Very sad and unfortunate that all of this business had to happen and this year's conference had to get postponed. But that Wonder Women of Wine project is an incredible thing. If you're in Austin, there are now restaurants who have the Wonder Women of Wine logo on their menus next to names of wines and producers of wine who are at least 50% owned or made by women, to bring even more awareness to this exact topic. So I could seriously talk. Like, I also consider Rania a friend. She's taught me so much in my own wine journey. I've asked an obnoxious number of questions from her over the day, sitting at tables while she serves me, but then, like, sharing bottles with her. So Rania, thank you so much for being here. Can you do us a favor and maybe just start from the beginning? Where are you originally from, and how did your wine journey get started?
Well, first, thanks for that awesome introduction and for talking about Wonder Women of Wine. That's really nice to hear it. Yeah, so I'm originally from San Francisco. I was born in San Francisco proper and grew up actually not too far from Napa Valley in a small town called Antioch. We lived in Daly City as well. Funny enough, my parents are not into wine. Were never really wine drinkers when I was growing up. So didn't really have much exposure to having wine, at the dinner table or anything like that at all. And then we moved to Houston when I was about 12. and I grew up in Houston mostly, was there for about 15 years, and then have been living in Austin for the past 6 years. And, I've loved wine actually since I was not old enough to legally consume it.
When you were a baby?
No, more like 18, 19, when I was
Okay.
working in restaurants. It's really when I first had my, first tastes of wine, and was really always, I think, more intrigued by the fact that people were, dropping money on bottles of wine. It was like never something that we did as a family when we went out to eat. And so as a server, I was just like, I need to know about this. I need to know how to open these bottles. I need to know how to talk about this, because I obviously wanted to make more money as a server. And then I started working in nicer restaurants as I was going to college. And I ended up working at a Papa's Brothers Steakhouse in Houston, which has, one of the largest, most robust wine programs.
So we had Molly on yesterday, who's now at Papa's Brothers.
Yeah.
And I got to share with this exact crowd about how awesome and what a incredible training ground that restaurant has become for the industry.
Yeah. It's literally an encyclopedia of a wine list. And so you go home and you're studying a certain region or a producer, and you go to work the next day, and lo and behold, there's that wine on the wine list. So to me, I felt like I was unlocking secrets of the wine list, things that didn't mean anything to me, words that didn't stand out to me before, and then studying something, going to work and being like, oh, now I know, now I understand, and now I can talk about this. So I got started there, and it was an amazing place to learn. And I started studying and taking exams through the Court of Master Sommeliers, which is probably, I would say, the most prominent, certification in the wine industry. And within 3 years, actually, I passed my advanced sommelier. And
for all of our viewers out there, guys, advanced somm is the level just below master. So we are talking about an incredible, immense level of knowledge and understanding, and a demonstration of their ability to blind taste wine, just like you've seen in the movies, and to be able to give service of wine. It's an incredible feat to have an advanced certification. So mad props to you for that.
Thanks. Yeah. So I left Papa's and came to Austin in 2014 and helped open up a restaurant called La Vie that, had a great wine program as well, but unfortunately didn't last. Didn't make it 2 years.
I still remember getting served by you. And oh my gosh, help me remember your colleague's name.
There was Darren, and then Vilma.
Vilma.
Yeah.
Vilma. You and Vilma were there running the show, and I loved that place, and the wine was incredible. It's a rough time, I know, and location, but beautiful place. But hey, I just want to say I'm super happy that, your Houston stint was as short as it was, and you made your way to Austin, because
Me too.
I'm selfish in that respect, because, I wouldn't have met you, but also because I just feel like the Austin vibe and the Austin wine community is much more in line with, I feel like, what you stand for in wine, and the wines that you love. And it's obvious because people are such big fans of Bufalina and the wine program. And so I kind of want to head in that direction to talk about these kinds of wines, because I know, so guys, full disclosure, and I'm happy to talk about this. Rania was also excited to talk about natural wine. It is a passion of hers. And I asked her to maybe dive into a different subject, because last week, Ray Small, who we're both good friends with, and helps sell wine, some of the wines that they carry at Bufalina and that we both love, talked about natural wine last week. So she was kind enough to choose an additional subject and teach us all about acid. So talk to me, why should we even care about, why should we even talk about acid in wine right now?
Oh man. So, right now, like I said, I'm sitting in my backyard and it is getting hot.
Amen.
So acid is something that I think, honestly, when you break down a wine's structure and the components that really make up a glass or a bottle of wine, we're talking about things like, the body, the alcohol, the acidity, if you're drinking a red wine, maybe the tannin levels, and then also possibly sweetness. But, you know, all of those things really can't exist in a bottle of wine unless you have some sort of balancing factor, which is the acid. And acid exists in every wine that we drink, just in varying levels. But if you're drinking a full-bodied wine, acid is going to be the thing that comes through and sort of cleanses your palate. If you're drinking a wine that's sweet, or has a little bit of residual sugar, acid is the thing that also comes and refreshes you after each sip, and it kind of, you know, prevents that cloying feeling in the back of your mouth. It's also the thing that you want to drink whenever it's super hot outside to refresh us, just like drinking lemonade or iced tea with lemon. And it's such an important part of everything that we consume, even the foods that we eat. If you think about any classic cuisine, Mexican food, for instance, I had Mexican food last night for dinner from Lichas, thank God. But if you think about, you know,
that's going to be on the weekend menu for me. I forgot about Lichas. Oh my God.
So good. But yeah, if you think about eating something spicy, we have, you know, tomatoes and lemon and pico de gallo and lime, things that brighten up these dishes that are spicy. Or if you're eating barbecue, you have pickles, you have onions, things that brighten up those dishes. And so we consume acid all the time. And so for me, I think that it's such an important part of balancing out a wine. It's also a natural preservative. Think about pickling food, you know, vinegar, those types of things. Wines that have high acid naturally age really well. If you think about some of the great sweet wines or even some of the great, you know, Rieslings of the world, Riesling can live for decades and decades, unlike a lot of other wines that don't have as naturally high acidity.
I love that you're talking about the preservative thing, right? Like, and to just make it very clear and obvious, I know you guys think about preserving things. We're talking about aging wine. And so some of those, like, famous, very, very famous for being able to drink them for very, very, very long time, right? Like really old Rieslings, really old Sauterne, really old Tokai. Like, one of the major reasons that we can let those age and they can still taste delicious is because of the acid.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and there are multiple types of acid that exist in a wine. I think the most common ones that we see are tartaric acid and malic acid. And tartaric acid is more of a fixed component that naturally occurs within certain grape varieties. So it can be higher in certain grapes and lower in others. Malic acid is the one that I think that we might be a little bit more familiar with. Malic acid is that you know, that green apple, that sort of underripe, tart, really makes your mouth salivate type of acid. And one of the most important things that we take into consideration when we're looking for acidic wines is what climate are the grapes grown in. Typically, we see higher acid wines grown in cooler climates. The grapes don't get quite as ripe. And naturally, that means the wines often have lower alcohol levels as well. Alcohol is directly related to the sugar that's in the grapes, and sugar and acid have an indirect relationship. So the longer that you let your grapes sit on the vine, the more that sugar level is going to increase and the acid is going to decrease. So it's really important for winemakers to decide when they're going to actually harvest their grapes. It's probably one of the most important decisions they have to make when producing a wine each year. So you really are seeking that perfect balance between acid and sugar.
I love that. So you talked about one of the major factors that affects acidity in wine being the climate. And so, you know, examples like the Mosel in Germany, it's a little bit cooler. They're at elevation. You know, they're going to have the ability from a climate perspective to maintain acidity. But there's more than just the climate affecting why Mosel Rieslings are, as an example, so acidic. What are some of the other factors that contribute to acid in wine besides climate?
I definitely think that soil plays a really important part as well in acidity levels. Generally, if you're thinking about, especially like the soils in the Mosel, for instance, you have a lot of slate. If we think about other regions that have naturally highly acidic grapes, like say Chablis in northern Burgundy, there's a lot of limestone and chalk. And typically the density of the soil too plays an important part in that. So if you have, kind of a rockier, looser soil like blue slate in the Mosel, typically it has a higher limestone content as well, and it's naturally going to produce wines that are a little bit more zippy, whereas more dense soil can often hold water a little bit longer and creates cooler soils, and also can contribute to slightly higher acid wines.
Cool. Is it also true that different grape varieties are naturally more prone to like higher acid or lower acid wines?
Yes, that's where the tartaric acid component comes into play. So some grapes like Riesling are naturally higher in acidity. They wouldn't even be able to survive in a warm climate. If you were to try and plant Riesling in Texas, you'd probably just be wasting your time and money and energy.
There is somebody, I know somebody out there is growing Riesling, because we had a tiny touch of it in rosé to like bring out a more aromatic component. I don't know who it is, and I can imagine it's really rough year after year to get a consistent crop out of that. Like,
sure, yeah, I hope
it's a risk for sure.
Yeah, no, so it definitely varies from grape to grape. You have grapes, especially some of the natural indigenous grape varieties in Italy, like Nebbiolo, for instance. Nebbiolo is this powerhouse. In terms of structure, it has high tannin, high acid, full-bodied. It's a very robust wine, but also what comes through and rescues your palate from those really gripping and drying tannins and that super high alcohol is the acidity. And, Piedmont, where Nebbiolo is grown classically, is a pretty cool climate, but it also has one of the longest growing seasons. So your grapes actually have a lot of time to slowly ripen and develop those sugars in a way that is not like scorching and not like searing the grapes like it would be in like a warm climate in the Southern Rhone, or a warm vintage in the Southern Rhone. Yeah,
I love that. And on the human interaction side, like what are the human factors that would affect acidity?
So, I mean, people can certainly falsely acidify their wines. So if you are making wine in a really warm climate, there is the process of acidification, which is when you're actually adding citric acid to the wine post-fermentation, which is somewhat, frowned upon, I guess, in the greater sort of world of wine, because it's not, a naturally occurring process. Aside, you can also pick earlier to get.
And I think that's where I was headed too, was like, in order to have to avoid citric acid additions, then you have to pay really close attention. Sorry, I'm like kind of cutting you off here, but like,
no, you're good.
Yeah, I think it's like, talk to me more about like why like the picking thing matters.
Well, I mean, if you've let your grapes sit, I mean, obviously we can't control the weather. So it's really important for farmers to pay close attention to what is happening, to look back on previous years and sort of see what the weather patterns are looking like. But, it's not just about having a heat spike one day and or hail or frost the next day. It's really about looking at the overall growing season and looking for, some cooler times. You're looking at diurnal shifts that, contrast between sunlight and nighttime temperatures. But really, you're looking for the perfect balance of sugar and acid in the grapes. And that is really considered to be like the ultimate time to pick, so that you're not ending up with sort of sun-kissed, overripe grapes, which are really going to end up being like somewhat of a flabby wine.
That's honestly, it's like always been one of my favorite descriptors in wine. And I feel like the one that my friends ask me about the most when I say like, oh man, this is like a super flabby wine and it's not enjoyable for me. Like, what does flabby mean? Can you articulate in a like easy to chew on and digest what we mean when we say flabby?
Yeah, flabby to me is like drinking something that is really alcoholic and tastes like burnt fruit or like overripe cooked fruit without having anything to sort of balance that feeling on your palate. It's just not pleasant. It's not enjoyable. It doesn't taste good.
But yet a lot of people drink flabby wines. I mean,
they
like
sure do.
I was about to say like some of the most popular wines on the
I
market
mean,
can be considered pretty flabby.
Don't get me wrong. I worked at a steakhouse, so I know all about flabby wines. But when you're eating something like a well marbled ribeye or a New York strip, those flabby wines can really play an important role in like the meal and the experience, because you have that marbling coating your palate, and then all of a sudden you have this big, ripe, juicy wine that comes in and sort of cleanses that fat in your mouth, for lack of a better term, and kind of gets you in those tannins too, and gets you ready for the next bite of meat. So there's certainly a place for those styles of wines. But if you're wanting to just drink something at happy hour, I'm not going to suggest, a big flabby wine by itself.
Yep. No, I love that. And I totally agree with you. I think, for me, those flabby wines, it's kind of like when I was a kid growing up, I used to love wearing like XXL shirts. I was like a little scrawny soccer player kid. So like XXL shirts were very big on me. And they were like, whatever, fun and comfortable to sleep in, but like, just, I don't know, not appropriate, or like not put together, it doesn't fit. And so sometimes I'll drink a wine and I'll be like, blah, like this just like, it doesn't go with my moment. It doesn't give me pleasure. Right? Like at the end of the day, that's what we're after, is like, what's going to bring pleasure to this moment. And like you said, if it's a ribeye moment, maybe that flabby wine isn't going to be so bad. But like, if I'm just sitting drinking a wine in 9-degree sunny weather and with no food in front of me, I sure as heck don't want a flabby wine. Absolutely. Just generally, and your palate learns, and this is something that I've learned over the past 3-4 years, especially, is like your palate starts to learn what balance is and why it's enjoyable. And when something's out of balance, like the alcohol is crazy high, or the fruit is so ripe or rich, or, it's like somebody put mega purple in this, it's just not as enjoyable in the world. Can you talk for a sec? Yesterday we talked about malolactic conversion or malolactic fermentation, because Molly shared about big whites. Can you talk about how malolactic conversion affects acidity?
Yeah, absolutely. So malolactic fermentation is we hear that kind of shortened to mallow quite a bit. Does this wine undergo mallow? But it's just a fancy way of saying that the naturally present malic acid, so that acid that I talked about that is like green apple acid, is converted to a softer, kind of creamier lactic acid, which lends that sort of buttery, creamy roundness to a lot of wines that we think about, like kind of like Molly probably mentioned, like oak-cured, buttery Chardonnays. But also almost all red wines undergo malolactic fermentation as well. So it can definitely soften the feeling of acid. You're not left with that kind of salivating feeling after taking a sip. But that's a winemaking choice as well. I mean, winemakers can choose to block malolactic fermentation from happening. It happens. It's not really a fermentation, actually. It's more of a bacteria that exists that really can hide in like the fine grains of like a barrel, an oak barrel. And so if you were to put your wine in there and malolactic had happened in that barrel before, it's most likely going to happen again. So ways that a winemaker can choose to block malolactic fermentation if they want to sort of keep a crispness or a freshness to their wine is basically filtering it off like the fine lees. So racking the wine is super helpful. You can also cool it down quite a bit, like a cold stabilization, to where those bacteria can't really survive. So this is an intentional thing that a lot of winemakers do if they want to maintain kind of a crispy, fresh style. Yeah.
And I was talking with Peter Stoltman about his Vin Gris of Trousseau, which I love. And it's completely sans soufre, so no sulfur added or anything. And one of the considerations, if a winemaker wants to try the style of wine that's without sulfur additions, a lot malolactic fermentation or malolactic conversion is a natural progression of most wine. Like wine wants to go through that. And in order for a winemaker to stop it, they have to intercede and like make it stop. So it's pretty typical for folks who are doing, more natural iterations of wines to see malolactic conversion. which then naturally is going to make it less crisp and refreshing and a little bit more round on the palate. And that was actually why I like messaged him. I was like, hey, did your rosé go through Mallow? Because the rosé was like, it was a pretty like kind of creamy almost rosé.
Okay, cool.
I loved it.
I haven't had it. Sounds great.
Vongri Trousseau, I mean, like, so good. I love Stoltman stuff though, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I'm a biased drinker over here. I'm going to bring Luke back. We're going to transition a little bit. I want to see if Luke has a good question here for our acid conversation. Luke, talk to me, man.
Hey. First of all, bravo, Rania. Bravo.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for all that, and bravo to everything you're doing, and everybody who's on this today. If you have not been to Bufalina, run, don't walk. To Bufalina. What's happening there is pretty special. So I cannot wait personally to get back. When it comes to food and wine pairing, what is an unlikely cool food and wine pairing where acid makes it work?
So I think with food and wine pairings, we often hear what grows together goes together, which I think is very true. But I also think that wine and food pairings are like, falling in love. It doesn't matter where the food came from. It doesn't matter where the wine came from, so long as it works together. And so one of my classic favorite pairings, non-traditional, is I love spicy food. I love Thai food. And I think really spicy, the hotter, the better. Thai food with actually the wine I'm drinking right now is amazing. Something that has just a little bit of crunchy sugar, but lots of acidity is probably one of my all-time favorites. Yeah.
Love that. Luke, thank you for bringing us back to the food conversation as always. That's an important piece of it. And some might even say the most important piece of it. We have a fun question because we were talking about flabby. People are loving this conversation. Alan wants to know, what is the most flabby wine?
Oof. That's a great question. Well, if I were going to, I'm just going to exclude dessert wines from this category altogether. Because there are some flabby ones out there. But I would say for me, one of the most flabby wines is often a Condrieu, like an oaked Viognier from the Rhone Valley, or even a Gewürztraminer from Alsace. These are two grapes that they're so beautiful aromatically. They're super floral and bright, but they have very low acid levels naturally. So they produce these kind of full, robust, rich styles of wine, and especially Viognier with some oak. To me, I don't love him.
I love this so much because literally we finished an episode with Molly yesterday who flies the flag for Gewürztraminer.
Yeah.
Like Trimbach Gewürz is her house wine.
That's awesome.
I know. But that's what I love. This is what I love about wine so much. And people who are like professionals who know a lot about it can differ so much on their personal preference in it.
Yes.
And so like why you and I might think that would be as flabby and like, we probably don't care for it too much. Like other people love it and it brings them lots of pleasure, and flabby wines are their jam. And that's great.
And flabby is not meant to be a bad word. I mean, to me, it's just the way that I think about a low acid, kind of full bodied, high alcohol wine. So if you think I saw somebody write curvy, I love it. Use curvy instead if that sounds better to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we're not, I think this is the big thing for me is like, when I was starting to explore wine and learn more about it, the thing I hated the most when somebody was like, those wines suck. And I'd be like, I really like that wine. Like, do I suck? No, like it's okay to have different preferences about these things. And you start to learn things that your palate enjoys. And like we talked about earlier, it can be situational. And the more that you try and explore, sometimes those things change. Like I used to hate Chardonnay, or at least I thought I did. And now I really love it. And, sometimes those Chardonnays can get flabby too. And sometimes I'm okay with all that tropical fruit goodness. Yeah. And most of the time I'm not. But gosh, this has been such an awesome. Before we get off the topic of acid and head into these three things to let people start their weekend, if you had to give folks like maybe 2 or 3 acid-driven wines. Let's maybe do like 2 whites and a red. So people, if they want to go check out like what it means to have like an acid-driven wine, that they can go explore these styles, what would be your suggestions?
Ooh, okay. So right now I would say it is great Chocolina weather. So definitely get one of those. That's a white or a rosé, or a red, but I would suggest a white or rosé that comes from the Basque Country in northern Spain. And they are super zippy and fresh and kind of have this Atlantic influence, delicious, and slightly spritzy. And then I'm always a fan of Chenin Blanc. So I would say find yourself a nice dry Chenin from the Loire Valley, particularly from the Anjou region. Always delicious. And then for red, I tend to like kind of more obscure. Sorry about that.
Bring it. No, that's what this wine nerd section is all about. They want to know obscure. Well, I spent a whole day talking about Aligote, and like people, I heard back from somebody that went in with their wife and they got their first ever bottle the other day, and they hadn't tried a new grape variety in like years. So bring the obscure stuff. Okay,
well then I will. Get yourself a Pinot d'Ani from the Northern Loire. It's like a super, super light-bodied, almost like rosé-esque red that's super peppery and floral and tart. Or Listan Negro from the Canary Islands, all volcanic soils. Ooh. Love those as well.
I'm trying to capture some of these in the comments for those of you who are asking, because I know like sometimes these words, the spelling can be kind of crazy. So I put it there in the comments. These are great wines to go explore. If you're into acid-driven, refreshing, great for hot weather, guys, there's a whole reason that, what was the cooking show? Like acid, salt, fat, heat, whatever. Like acid is such a key component in food and the food experience. Like anything that you would like squirt a lemon on or a lime on, like eat it with an acidic wine and understand like how that component is pretty much like a food ingredient. So I love this. These are great suggestions, guys. I am a personal fan of all these things. I actually saw that the Rezabel Rosé Lazarus got some to put on their menu even. I'm not going to say like my buddy Marcus, a local microbrewery, guys, that I'm a huge fan of. I've been rubbing off on Marcus, the GM, and he's kind of a, blooming wine nerd. And he is obsessed with that rosé, and they just put it on their menu. So
I also, right before I came home today to prepare for this, I put on the Rezabal Rosé and regular size and magnums on buffalинawine.com, so you can also purchase those.
Shut up. I'm going to log off and get a magnum right now. I have a history with said bottles. I think actually somebody you know quite well, Chris, namely, was involved the last time we had magnums at somebody's birthday party.
I do recall, yes.
Oh my gosh, y'all, there are pictures out there in the world and nobody better be selling them anywhere. Those are private. We had a lot of fun with Chocolate Rosé Magnums, y'all. This is so good. Such great wine. Rania, holy mother of knowledge, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Also, I feel like I'm getting to hang out with you and other people are just watching us hang out. So
basically, yeah.
I know. I miss hanging out with you. Okay, so we don't have time. This is time for the weekend, but I do want to let everybody know about these 3 things. While we're doing that, I'm going to bring Luke back up. We are going to, Rania is going to lead us out with a cheers towards the weekend, but not before I do these 3 things. So guys, there is still 1 golden ticket left. So if you're hoping for your Willy Wonka moment, so no trademark infractions or whatever, guys, this is still happening. Even if you didn't get it, it's covering up all of our faces. It's in the comments, guys. You can read it. There is 1 golden ticket left. It will be given away at the end of the virtual tasting tomorrow. If you don't have your virtual tasting pack yet, you can still pick it up at curbside. Okay, so go make that happen tomorrow before 4 o'clock, and you can have your wines and do the virtual tasting with Chris and Catherine. Cool. Number 2, if you've been on the lookout for wine accessories or the merch that I'm not wearing today, those beautiful hats that you always see me in, they're on our merch section of our website. The link's right there. Go get you some. And then last but not least, I'm not going to read them all off. The lineup of wines for next week, so you can drink along with me if you want to, are right there in the comments. Every day, 5 o'clock, right here, mark the end of your workday like we are marking the beginning of the weekend. Rania, thanks again for being here. Can you lead us out on a cheers towards the weekend?
Yes. I would like to cheers to my grandmother, well, Chris's grandmother, but my grandmother, who is 89 years old. And every time we have a bottle of wine in front of her, she always manages to take a photo like this, chugging from the bottle. And it's the coolest, just the greatest pictures and greatest time drinking wine with her.
Can you please always post those on social so I can see them and enjoy that with her?
Yes.
Well, in her honor, I'm going to cheers with my bottle then. So, Ronnie,
right.
thanks for being here. What's Chris's grandma's name?
Janice.
Janice. Okay, to Janice and to Rania and to all of you guys out there, happy weekend. Cheers, guys.
Happy weekend. Cheers.
Mourvedre for the win. Yum.